The fluorescent lights in the Princeton University hallway flickered as Maya Chen rushed to her advanced theoretical physics class, her worn backpack bouncing against her shoulder. She was already 10 minutes late. Again. The semester had barely started, and she was drowning in coursework, her scholarship hanging by a thread. Room 301 fell silent as Maya slipped through the door, expecting to see Professor Harrison's disapproving scowl. Instead, she froze. Standing at the front of the lecture hall was something she had never seen before. The figure was tall and slender, with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer under the harsh classroom lights. Its head was slightly elongated, with large almond-shaped eyes that shifted between deep purple and midnight blue. Most striking was how it moved, with a fluid grace that seemed to defy gravity. "Ah, Ms. Chen," the being spoke, its voice resonating with an otherworldly harmony. "Please, take your seat. We were just discussing the limitations of human understanding regarding quantum entanglement." Maya's classmates sat in rapt attention, seemingly unfazed by their instructor's appearance. She blinked hard, wondering if she'd finally cracked from sleep deprivation. But the alien, there was no other word for it, remained at the podium, waiting expectantly. Yes, sorry I'm late," she managed, sliding into the nearest empty seat. "I am Professor Zix 427, though you may call me Professor Zix," the being announced, turning back to the holographic equations floating in the air. Another detail Maya's stunned brain had somehow missed. "I am a visiting scholar from the Centauri Scientific Academy, and I will be taking over this course for the remainder of the semester." The next hour passed in a blur. Professor Zix explained concepts Maya had struggled with for months with elegant simplicity, making connections she'd never considered. Their teaching method was revolutionary, using four-dimensional visualizations and explaining quantum mechanics through what they called universal harmonics. As the class filed out, still buzzing with excitement, Professor Zix's voice cut through the chatter. "Ms. Chen, a moment of your time, please." Maya approached the podium, her heart pounding. Up close, she could see intricate patterns swirling beneath Professor Zix's translucent skin, like living circuitry. "Your latest paper on quantum probability cascades was interesting," Professor Zix said, their eyes shifting to a deep emerald green. "Flawed in its fundamental assumptions, but interesting. You see connections others miss, even if you lack the proper framework to understand them fully." Thank you." Maya wasn't sure whether to be flattered or offended. "I have a proposition for you, Ms. Chen." Professor Zix's voice dropped lower, taking on an almost conspiratorial tone. "Your species' educational methods are painfully primitive, and your struggling grades reflect this limitation. I can help you not only pass this course, but understand physics in ways no human has before." Maya's breath caught. "What's the catch?" "In return, I need your help understanding something that has puzzled my species for millennia: human creativity and intuition. Your kind makes logical leaps that should be impossible, finds solutions through what you call gut feelings. This ability, it could revolutionize our approach to science. So, you want to study me while teaching me advanced physics." Professor Zix's skin rippled with patterns of gold and silver. "More than that, I want to understand how your mind works, how you can look at a problem and see possibilities that our most advanced quantum computers miss. And in exchange, I will share knowledge that could transform your understanding of the universe." Maya should have been scared. Should have run from the room, reported this to someone. Anyone. Instead, she felt a familiar spark of curiosity, the same one that had driven her to study physics despite her family's objections. "This isn't just about passing the class, is it?" she asked, meeting those otherworldly eyes. "No," Professor Zix replied, their skin now pulsing with deep blues and purples. "This is about pushing the boundaries of both our species' understanding. Your latest exam is in 3 weeks. By then, I believe we can prove that human intuition, combined with advanced alien knowledge, could unlock secrets neither of our civilizations has discovered alone. Maya thought about her struggling grades, her family's sacrifices to send her here, and the countless nights she'd spent trying to grasp concepts that seemed just beyond her reach. But more than that, she thought about the possibilities this strange professor was offering, a chance to understand the universe in ways she'd only dreamed of. "When do we start?" she asked. Professor Zix's skin blazed with brilliant gold. "Right now, if you're ready. Though I should warn you, this knowledge comes with responsibility. What we discover together could change everything." As Maya followed Professor Zix into their private research room, filled with equipment she couldn't begin to comprehend, she realized she might have just signed up for the most important extra credit assignment in human history. Maya sat cross-legged on the floor of Professor Zix's research room, surrounded by floating holographic symbols that pulsed with alien light. It had been 2 weeks since their unusual arrangement began, and she still couldn't quite believe this was her life now. "You're thinking too linearly again," Professor Zix observed, their skin rippling with patterns of gentle azure. "Time isn't a straight line, Maya. It's more like, imagine a piece of fabric being folded repeatedly upon itself." Maya closed her eyes, trying to visualize it, like origami with space-time. "Yes, exactly." Professor Zix's skin flashed with excited gold sparks. "That metaphor, it shouldn't work, and yet it perfectly captures the concept. This is exactly what fascinates me about human cognition." The professor moved closer, causing several holographic equations to swirl and reshape themselves. "Your species has this remarkable ability to draw connections between seemingly unrelated concepts. Our scientists would spend decades running quantum simulations to arrive at the same understanding you just reached through a paper-folding analogy." Maya opened her eyes, watching as the equations danced around her. She could read them now, sort of. The alien mathematical language was beginning to make sense, like learning to see patterns in static. "But that's just how we learn," she said. "We relate new things to familiar things. It's not really special. On the contrary." Professor Zix's voice took on the harmonic resonance they use when particularly excited. "This morning, you compared quantum entanglement to identical twins sharing a feeling across distances. Last week, you likened wave-particle duality to how humans can be both students and teachers simultaneously. These insights, they're revolutionary." Maya felt her cheeks warm at the praise. "Maybe, but I still can't solve half the problems on our last homework set. Because you're still trying to solve them the way you think you should, rather than the way your mind wants to." Professor Zix gestured, and the holograms transformed into a complex 3-dimensional model of quantum probability states. "Watch." The professor began manipulating the model with graceful movements, their fingers leaving trails of light in the air. Maya watched in amazement as the quantum states shifted and flowed, revealing hidden patterns she'd never noticed before. "Now you try," Professor Zix instructed. "Don't think about the equations. Think about how it feels." Maya stood up, hesitantly reaching toward the hologram. To her surprise, she could feel it, not physically, but somehow in her mind. It was like playing a musical instrument she'd never seen before, but somehow knew how to use. "That's it," Professor Zix encouraged as Maya began moving the quantum states around. "Your intuition is already making connections my species would consider impossible." As Maya worked, she found herself thinking about dance, about how particles might move if they were partners in an elaborate cosmic ballet. The hologram responded to her movements, forming patterns that made Professor Zix's skin pulse with excited chromatic waves. "Extraordinary!" they exclaimed. "You've just demonstrated a 17-dimensional probability solution that our computers took 3 years to calculate. And you did it by dancing, I guess." Maya laughed, still moving with the hologram. "It just felt right, like the particles wanted to move this way." Professor Zix's skin shifted to a deep, thoughtful purple. "Perhaps this is why your species has advanced so quickly. You don't just observe the universe, you feel it, dance with it, play with it. You anthropomorphize particles and forces, giving them desires and personalities, and somehow this leads you to genuine insights. Maya let her hands drop, and the hologram froze in its new configuration. Is that not how your people do science? No, Professor Zix replied softly. We observe, we calculate, we prove, but we never dance with the equations. They paused, their skin showing complex patterns Maya had never seen before. I'm beginning to understand why my superiors were so interested in human education methods, even if they don't yet grasp the true significance. Something in their tone made Maya pause. Your superiors? I thought this was your personal research project. Professor Zix's skin briefly flickered with what Maya had learned to recognize as discomfort before smoothing back to its usual silvery sheen. Of course, all academic research must be properly approved and monitored. But let's focus on your progress. The exam is in 1 week, and I believe you're ready to attempt something unprecedented. Maya wanted to press further about these mysterious superiors, but Professor Zix was already reconfiguring the holographic display. I want you to forget everything you know about traditional physics examinations. Instead, I'm going to teach you how to demonstrate your understanding in a way that combines both our species' methods of knowledge verification. As they worked late into the night, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Professor Zix's interest in human learning than they were letting on. But with the biggest exam of her life approaching, and the universe literally unfolding before her eyes, she pushed her concerns aside. Whatever the professor's true motives might be, she was learning more than she'd ever dreamed possible. What she didn't notice was the small device hidden in the corner of the room, quietly transmitting data about their sessions to a location far beyond Earth's atmosphere, where others of Professor Zix's kind were watching with growing interest and concern. The quantum probability display cast ethereal shadows across Professor Zix's private research room as Maya manipulated a particularly complex equation. She'd grown so comfortable with the alien technology that she barely noticed how impossible it all was anymore. That's why the sudden burst of angry voices from the adjacent office caught her completely off guard. The council demands results, Zix 427. The voice was like Professor Zix's but harsher, with discordant harmonics that made Maya's teeth ache. Your reports are becoming increasingly concerning. Maya froze, her hands still suspended in the holographic field. Through the wall, she could see pulsing lights that suggested multiple Centaurians were present. My research is proceeding exactly as planned. Professor Zix responded, their usual melodic tones strained. The human subject is demonstrating remarkable progress. Progress is not the concern, interrupted a third voice, deeper than the others. Your latest data suggests you're allowing the subject to develop genuine understanding of Class 4 restricted physics concepts. This goes far beyond the approved parameters of the study. Maya's heart pounded. Restricted concepts, approved parameters. She should leave. Pretend she never heard this. Instead, she found herself pressing closer to the wall. The original parameters were flawed, Professor Zix argued. We assumed humans were simply making lucky guesses, that their intuitive leaps were random and couldn't be replicated. But I've discovered something far more significant. Their minds are dangerous, the first voice cut in. Your own data proves it. This human student has already internalized concepts that took our civilization millennia to discover. At this rate, they could bypass centuries of scientific development. The Council's decision is final. Terminate the experiment. Implement the memory suppression protocols immediately. Maya stumbled back from the wall, her mind racing. Everything. The special tutorials, the alien technology, the breakthrough insights into physics. They wanted to erase it all. Her foot caught a power coupling, sending it clattering across the floor. The voices in the next room fell silent. It seems our conversation is no longer private, the deep voice observed coldly. This complicates matters. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing Professor Zix and 2 other Centaurians. Where Zix's skin shimmered with subtle colors, these beings were stark metallic gray, their eyes fixed on Maya with unblinking intensity. Maya Chen, the taller gray being said, its skin rippling with patterns that made her feel nauseous. Your participation in this research has been terminated. Please remain still while we initiate the memory suppression sequence. Wait. Professor Zix moved between Maya and the others. Council members, you don't understand what you're destroying. Maya, show them. Show them what you showed me yesterday. Maya's hands trembled as she looked between the three aliens. The council member's skin pulsed with threatening patterns, but in Professor Zix's eyes, she saw something she recognized. Hope. Taking a deep breath, Maya turned to the quantum display. Her fingers moved through the holographic field, not following any equation or formula, but dancing with the mathematical concepts like old friends. The probability clouds twisted and merged in ways that should have been impossible, forming patterns that even she didn't fully understand, but somehow knew were right. Impossible, breathed the shorter council member, its gray skin now showing traces of astonished blue. She's solving the Raxian convergence, without any formal training in trans-dimensional mathematics. Not solving it, Professor Zix corrected, their skin glowing with proud gold ripples. She's communicating with it. This is what I've been trying to explain. Humans don't just learn, they connect. They intuit. They see patterns we've been blind to because we've spent millennia believing there's only one way to understand the universe. The taller council member moved closer to the display, its severe demeanor wavering. These solutions, they're elegant, simple, even. How did we miss this? Because you were looking for answers, Maya found her voice, surprising herself with its steadiness. We look for questions. Every solution I find just makes me more curious about what else might be possible. And that's precisely what makes them dangerous, the first council member retorted, but with less conviction than before. If humans can bypass our established scientific progression, then perhaps our progression needs to be re-examined, Professor Zix interjected. Maya has shown me that our own understanding is limited by our insistence on rigid methodologies. We've been so focused on being right that we've forgotten to be curious. Maya watched the holographic equations dance around them, no longer afraid. You can try to erase what I've learned, but you can't erase how I think. None of us can unknow something once we've understood it. Not really. That's not how knowledge works. The council members' skin shifted through various patterns as they communicated in frequencies Maya couldn't hear. Finally, the taller one spoke. This situation requires further analysis. 6427. You will prepare a full report for the council, including all observational data on the human intuitive learning process. As for you, Maya Chen, the being turned its unsettling gaze on her. You will be placed under observation. Any attempt to share what you've learned will result in immediate intervention. And my exam? Maya asked, earning a surprised color ripple from all three Centaurians. You're facing possible memory suppression, and you're concerned about an exam, the shorter council member asked incredulously. I didn't spend 3 weeks learning alien physics just to fail anyway, Maya replied with a shrug. Besides, if you're going to observe me, you might as well see what humans can really do when we're motivated. For the first time, the council member's skin showed traces of gold. Amusement, Maya had learned from Professor Zix. Very well, the taller one conceded. The exam will proceed as planned. Consider it a practical demonstration of your species' capabilities. But be warned, we will be watching very carefully. As the council members departed, Maya turned to Professor Zix. So, no pressure or anything, but it looks like I'm not just taking an exam for my grade anymore. No, Professor Zix agreed, their skin swirling with complex patterns of concern and excitement. You're taking it for all of humanity. And Maya, there's something else you should know about what's really at stake here. Professor Zix's skin rippled with anxious patterns as they sealed the door to their research room. Maya had never seen the alien look so troubled, the usually smooth color transitions now jarring and discordant. The exam isn't just a test of your physics knowledge, Professor Zix began, their voice modulating into lower frequencies. It's part of a larger evaluation of humanity's readiness for advanced knowledge transfer. Maya sank into her usual spot on the floor, the gravity of the situation settling over her. Readiness. You mean there are other professors like you, teaching other students? No, you were the proof of concept study. Professor Zix's skin darkened to deep indigo. The Council of Sciences has been debating whether to initiate broad educational contact with Earth. Some argue that accelerating human scientific development could help both our species. Others think we're dangerous. Maya finished, remembering the council members' reactions to her quantum solutions. They fear what they don't understand, and humans are very difficult to understand. Professor Zix activated the holographic display, but instead of equations, it showed a series of historical events. Look at your species' development curve. Maya watched as human technological progress played out before her. From stone tools to smartphones, from fire to fusion reactors, the pace of advancement was staggering when viewed this way. Most species follow predictable development patterns, Professor Zix explained. But humans, you make intuitive leaps that bypass dozens of expected steps. It terrifies the Council because they can't predict where you'll go next. And my exam will determine if we're ready for more advanced knowledge. Maya felt a weight settle onto her shoulders. No pressure or anything. It's more complicated than that. Professor Zix's skin showed patterns Maya had never seen before, fear mixed with something else. There's a faction in the Council that believes humanity's rapid advancement poses an existential threat. They want to implement widespread cognitive dampening, subtly altering Earth's atmosphere to reduce human intuitive capabilities. Maya jumped to her feet. They want to make us stupider. Can they even do that? The technology exists. They're calling it a safety protocol to ensure stable development. Professor Zix moved closer, their voice dropping further. The exam results could influence their decision. If you demonstrate that human intuition can be channeled productively. And if I fail, then I will have proved their point about humans being too unstable to trust with advanced knowledge. Professor Zix's skin rippled with determination. But you won't fail. I've seen what your mind can do when it's free to work in its own way. Maya paced the room, her thoughts racing. So no pressure. I just have to ace an alien physics exam to prevent humanity from being secretly lobotomized. And I guess I can't tell anyone about this. The Council is watching. Any attempt to warn others would result in immediate action. Professor Zix gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show complex mathematical structures. We have 3 days until the exam. I can teach you more conventional solutions. No, Maya interrupted, surprising herself with her certainty. They're not really testing my ability to memorize alien equations, are they? They're testing how humans think. Professor Zix's skin flickered with interest. What are you suggesting? Teach me the fundamental principles. The really deep stuff that underlies everything else. Not just how to solve the problems, but why the universe works the way it does. Maya felt energy coursing through her as the idea took shape. If they want to see what humans can do, let's show them how we really think. For the next 3 days, Maya barely slept. Professor Zix taught her things that transformed her understanding of reality itself. They explored concepts that made quantum mechanics look simple, diving deep into the mathematical language that described the very fabric of existence. But instead of memorizing solutions, Maya looked for connections. She drew parallels between multidimensional physics and music, between quantum entanglement and human relationships, between the dance of subatomic particles and the patterns of life itself. Each insight sparked new ones, building an intuitive framework that felt both alien and deeply natural. The morning of the exam, Maya entered the lecture hall to find not just her usual classmates, but a row of Centaurian observers at the back, their gray skin reflecting the fluorescent lights. Professor Zix stood at the podium, their skin carefully maintained at a neutral silver. Today's examination, they announced, their voice carrying that subtle harmonic that humans had learned to associate with important moments, will be somewhat unconventional. A holographic display activated, but instead of showing standard physics problems, it presented a series of real-world scenarios, complex systems with multiple interacting factors, theoretical problems that had puzzled scientists for centuries, and entirely new challenges that seemed to defy conventional physics. Maya felt a smile spread across her face as she understood. This wasn't just a test of knowledge. It was a chance to demonstrate how humans could approach problems in ways the Centaurians had never considered. Her classmates looked bewildered, but Maya saw the patterns, the connections, the dance of possibility in every scenario. As she began to work, she thought about everyone back on Earth who would never know how much was riding on this moment. About all the future students who deserved the chance to learn and discover in their own unique ways. About humanity's potential to see the universe through eyes that could find wonder in the impossible. Her hands moved through the holographic field, weaving solutions that were part mathematics, part intuition, and part pure human creativity. And as she worked, she could have sworn she saw Professor Zix's carefully neutral expression slip, their skin briefly flashing with triumphant gold. The universe, Maya realized, was about to witness something unprecedented. A human being who refused to solve problems the right way, choosing instead to show an advanced alien civilization that sometimes the best way forward was to dance with the impossible and trust your intuition to lead you home. The silence in the lecture hall was absolute as the last holographic projection faded away. Maya's classmates sat in stunned silence, their expressions a mix of confusion and awe at what they'd just witnessed. The Centaurian observers at the back of the room had gone completely still, their gray skin showing complex patterns that rippled like oil on water. Professor Zix stood at the podium, their skin cycling through colors so quickly it created a prismatic effect. "The examination is complete," they announced, their voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself seem to vibrate. "The council will now evaluate the results." Maya's hands were shaking as she lowered them from the final problem solution. She had approached each challenge in her own way, using what she'd learned from Professor Zix not as a template to follow, but as a foundation to build upon. Where the Centaurians sought precision, she had found poetry. Where they demanded order, she had discovered dance. The council members huddled together, their skin patterns synchronizing as they communicated in frequencies beyond human hearing. Maya caught Professor Zix's eye, and the alien gave her what she had learned to recognize as their version of an encouraging nod. Finally, the tallest council member stepped forward. "Maya Chen, your solutions to these problems are unprecedented." "Is that good or bad?" Maya asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "That is precisely what we must determine." The council member's skin shifted to a deep, thoughtful purple. "You solved the quantum gravity paradox not through standard mathematical progression, but by conceptualizing particles as lonely dancers seeking partners. You resolved the entropy cascade problem by comparing it to, of all things, a human family gathering. Because that's what it's like," Maya said, standing up. "Complex systems that look chaotic on the surface, but have deep emotional patterns underlying them. The math is just another way of describing relationships that exist everywhere." "But these are fundamental forces of the universe," another council member protested. "They don't have emotions or desires." "Maybe not literally," Maya agreed. "But thinking about them that way helps us understand them better. Humans have always used stories and metaphors to grasp complex ideas. We anthropomorphize everything from our pets to our computers, not because we think they're actually human, but because it helps us connect with them, understand them, work with them more effectively." Professor Zix moved to stand beside her. "This is what I've been trying to explain. Human intuition isn't a flaw or a shortcut. It's a fundamentally different way of processing reality. They don't just observe the universe, they empathize with it." The council member's skin showed patterns of intense calculation. "The implications are disturbing," the tall one said finally. "If humans can intuit solutions to problems our greatest minds spent centuries solving, then maybe we've been solving them wrong," Professor Zix interrupted. Or rather, maybe there isn't a wrong way. Maya's solutions work. They're mathematically sound, even if the path to reaching them seems chaotic by our standards. It's not chaos, Maya said quietly. It's creativity. And it's not just me. Every human approaches problems differently. Some think in pictures, some in words, some in feelings. That's our strength. We don't just find different answers. We find different ways of looking for them. The council members conferred again, their skin patterns growing more complex. Maya held her breath, knowing that far more than her grade was riding on their decision. Finally, the tall one spoke again. We came here to evaluate humanity's readiness for advanced knowledge transfer. Instead, you have shown us something far more valuable, that there are forms of knowledge we ourselves are not ready to understand. Professor Zix's skin flashed with surprise. Then you're not going to implement the dampening protocol? No, the council member replied. Such an action would be counterproductive. Instead, we will be expanding the educational exchange program, not just to teach humans our sciences, but to learn from them as well. Their skin showed traces of what might have been embarrassment. It seems we have been somewhat rigid in our thinking. The shorter council member stepped forward. Professor Zix 427, you will be given oversight of the expanded program. Your insights into human learning methods will be invaluable. And your role in preventing a rather serious mistake has been noted, the tall one added, their skin showing patterns that made Professor Zix's flash with pleased surprise. Maya felt relief wash over her, followed by excitement. So, does this mean I passed? For the first time, the council member's skin showed synchronized patterns of gold, genuine amusement. Ms. Chen, you have done far more than pass an exam. You have helped us understand that the universe is vaster and stranger than even we had imagined. And perhaps that is the most important lesson any species can learn. As her classmates filed out, still buzzing with excitement about the strange exam and its implications, Maya lingered behind with Professor Zix. Thank you, she said simply, not just for teaching me, but for believing in how I learn. Professor Zix's skin shimmered with warm colors. You have taught me as much as I taught you, perhaps more. They paused, their patterns shifting to show anticipation. The expanded program will need teaching assistants who understand both human and Centaurian perspectives, someone who can help bridge the gap between our different ways of thinking. Maya grinned. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance to help shape the future of both our species' understanding of the universe. Professor Zix's skin rippled with possibilities. What do you say? Maya looked at the holographic projector, remembering how alien and impossible it had seemed just weeks ago. Now it felt like an old friend, a tool for dancing with the mathematical poetry of reality itself. When do we start? As they left the lecture hall together, human and alien, teacher and student, Maya couldn't help but smile at how it had all turned out. She had entered room 301 worried about passing a physics exam, and somehow ended up helping to revolutionize how two species would explore the cosmos together. Sometimes, she reflected, the most important lessons aren't found in textbooks or even in alien databases. They're found in the spaces between knowledge and intuition, in the dance of possibilities that exists when different ways of thinking come together to create something entirely new. And somewhere out there, in the vast expanse of space, countless mysteries waited to be understood, not just through the precise calculations of the Centaurians or the intuitive leaps of humans, but through the beautiful combination of both.